dreams, do they really come true? They do. They really do. If you have one and you're serious and you're focused on it, they come true. I could spend all day talking about branding. I really could. I love branding. I love absolutely everything about it. Why did you decide that of all the bakeries in Denmark, none of them were satisfactory and you had to create your own? What was so fundamentally different about that? Don't tell me that it's location. Don't tell me that, you have great imported coffee. Come up with a bigger, like a cohesive meaning behind why you decided your bakery had to exist in the world. Like Nike, for example. Somehow you put on a pair of shoes or a pair of shorts and a shirt, and something you feel a little bit different. You feel like a little bit more confident, a little more aggressive, a little bit more of an athlete, a little bit more, I can do this. You just step back and take a moment to truly define what it is that you want to accomplish and why you decided to start your company in the first place. Answer some fundamental questions that can start to really sharpen your vision for who your company is today and where you want to go in the future. That is so powerful and empowering to your organization.
This is Denmark Real. I am Arahat. With me today is Juliana Spaven. Juliana, you are a brand strategist, helping companies find their why, helping companies clear who they are branding to, and strengthening their brand and business. You also received 3 awards working as a diplomat with the US Department of State. Welcome to you, Juliana.
Thank you so much. I'm so proud to be here. So thank you so much for inviting me on.
Thank you for joining in. Juliana, right away to the core of it, what are some of the mistakes you see small businesses are making, just in general?
Well, that's a loaded question. So there's mistakes that small businesses make, and then there's mistakes small businesses are making in the time of COVID. So let's tear those apart. In general, I think small businesses have a great product or great service, and they focus on bringing that to market, but they don't stop and think about how they want to grow with intention. They don't think about, what are their brand values? What do they stand for? What makes them utterly unique in the market, such that, their competition just kind of moves away and they have a clear road forward, and their customers and their clients, they suddenly see that and they gravitate towards that. I think that's the biggest struggle. And then I see companies coming to me and saying, hey, can you help me be distinctive? Can you help me stand out? Because they've built their business, but they haven't built it with intention. And I think that's the fundamental lever of, even if you're starting out today, you can ask yourself these simple, not easy, simple questions that really start to build your business with intention and with a North Star, so that you're growing always aligned on the vision that you had when you started your company. So I think that's if there was a mistake, I would say that's probably it. And the world looks a little bit different in the last 2.5 months because of COVID too. So that's a separate topic.
Yeah, because so it is actually defining the vision and being more precise on where they want to go with the business.
Exactly. We were just talking about this before we started filming. But, in your own life, you want to have an intention and you want to have a purpose and you want to have a vision for what that looks like. What does success look like when I get to the end of my life, when I'm 80, 85? Will I be happy? Will I have done everything I set out to accomplish? You want to have that trajectory. The same thing with your business. You want to sit back and you say, in 20 years, where do I want my company to be? And not just revenues, not just, thousands of happy customers and satisfied customers, but where do I want to go? What impact do I want to have on the world? Why did I decide that this company needed to start in the first place? What did I see that was so inherently wrong in that is building your brand with intention? And when you line up those pieces and you start to think that way about your company, it helps streamline all of your decisions, and it becomes a powerful force for how you show up in the world, how you attract the right type of customers, how you put out the value you want to put out, and how you make decisions that shape and help your company grow with intention.
Yeah, because not many people are clear with the vision of the company, and usually they lose the objectivity with time. So they lose why did they start with the company. And
that's exactly right. You know, sometimes, you know, people start companies accidentally. You know, there's, this happened, and then I had this opportunity to start something on my own, and so I thought that was a really good idea, so I did it. You know, and it just feels very squishy and undefined. You know, the reason for starting a company, and I just think there's such power behind really aligning with your intention, your core ideas and dreams for this company, and bringing that to bear in all of your touch points and everything you do. And I'm not talking about touch points like logo and design. I'm talking about, you know, your vision, how you inspire your teams, and what are your values, and what's your brand promise that you give and extend to customers every single day with every single interaction. It infuses every aspect of your company. And so it's so important to have that aligned and sharpened right from the get-go, so that you're not making mistakes, and you're not having to backtrack, and you're not being pulled in different directions by a shiny new, you know, thing over here or over there. Is it in alignment with what our brand stands for and who we want to be? Yes, no, I don't know. That's the confounding part of as your business grows, if you don't have intention.
so is it that you see most of these companies are changing a lot inside the company? They are trying different things because they are actually they didn't define their vision clearly. Yeah,
you know, I see a lot of companies that will come to me and they'll say, you know, help us be more distinctive. We just don't, you know, we don't, I don't know, a brand doesn't have a personality, you know? And I'm like, well, right. You know, the what they're identifying is what I call brand pain. They're going through brand pain right now. You know, I've met and talked with leaders who are, you know, will say things like, here's my business card, but please don't look at it. I don't like the logo. I don't, you know, or, you know, please don't go to my website. Oh my God, it's horrendous. You know, that kind of thing. And they're apologizing. They're in brand pain. And I'm like, look, if you just step back and take a moment to truly define what it is that you want to accomplish and why you decided to start your company in the first place, answer some fundamental questions that can start to really sharpen your vision for what your company, who your company is today, and where you want to go in the future. That is so powerful and empowering to your organization and your company and your employees, and you don't wind up getting distracted. So, you know, like I meet and speak with a lot of companies who will be distracted by, oh, there's an acquisition target for us, you know, and this, if we buy this company, it's going to be fantastic. We're going to have more people. We're going to do it. And this is going to, you know, this is going to help us grow. And I look at them and I'm like, but grow in which direction? Is it the right way? Is it what you want to do? You know, and so it just seems like it's, you know, they're running to build more pieces onto their overall puzzle. But I'm like, but is that ultimately the shape that you want? And that's why it's so important to have that vision in place and just think through, you know, that plan in place and think through, where do I want to be? What is my vision for my company? So, so that's, you know, that's an area that I counsel a lot of clients on, and prospects on, is helping them come to that realization that, you know, it doesn't have to be this way. You don't have to struggle. But you do need to step back. It doesn't happen by accident. It's not that, you know, like if you look at some of the great brands in the world, like Volvo, for example, from its very early, you know, beginnings, Volvo realized they needed to build a car that would withstand harsh driving conditions in Sweden. Well, that automatically made their cars more reliable and more safe, because those cars had to withstand, you know, wind chill, and had to withstand icy roads and tough driving conditions that you didn't perhaps have elsewhere. And so they already from the very beginning built their brand with more reliability and safety built in. Well, today that's the tenet of what Volvo stands for. That's their vision, and everything they do is aligned with that North Star of safety and reliability. That's why they're never going to come out with the Volvo sports car. You know, that's a two-seater that hugs the road, that goes really fast and zips around. That's not the Volvo car. The Volvo car is shaped like a box because it's sturdy and it provides safety. You know, if it rolls over in an accident, the shape is most likely to not wind up having this type of an impact, which is going to be more detrimental to the driver. It's designed with that, again, with their North Star, their promise in their mind of, we're a brand that stands for reliability and safety. And that's how we infuse every aspect of our brand. It's Volvo was the company that came up with the 3-point harness seatbelt system. And they could have kept that proprietary, but they said this is a safety feature that the entire world needs to have. We are on the precipice of making cars safer for everyone. So they gave that away, and every single
That's
car.
integrity.
Exactly.
That's really integrity.
Every single car today in the world has that, a new car, has that 3-point harness system. And it's from Volvo. And again, it reinforces the Volvo brand of, we are so obsessed with safety and reliability. And that's what we set out to make cars that were safe and reliable. And we're going to continue that for the next 100 years or however long Volvo manages to keep going. But that's so integral to their brand. And I love, that clarity. And that is what, when you look at small businesses, they sometimes start, like I said, accidentally. Something happens and there's a reason to start, and there's a client that says, oh, can you help me? And someone says, oh, yes, absolutely. And they start, but there's no intention. And, there's no North Star, there's no direction there. And so then they struggle. They a couple of years later. Because
the intention is only to be better, bigger.
Exactly.
Just to grow.
But not different. And there's a huge point there as well. Being bigger and bigger, or better, those are undefinable. And eventually the market is so competitive that someone will come along and will be bigger and better. But if you're different and you own different, it's that much harder for someone to emulate that. I mean, Volvo owns safety, it just does. So for another brand to come along and say, oh, we want to be the next safe car brand, not saying they can't do it, but it's going to be a very hard path, uphill for them on that one versus, what Volvo solidified when they branded their company.
Okay. So where should a small company start? So defining the intention and vision. Yeah,
and it's there are some great key questions to ask as you're thinking about, if you're just starting out. There's some great key questions to ask yourself, right? Which is, and I'm assuming you're a solo proprietor, or maybe you have a few employees. But it's, why are we different? And what do we do that's different? What are the services that we offer? And getting very clear about what your brand attributes are. So what do you produce on a day-to-day basis? Are you a baker and you're making exceptionally, delicious pastries? What is different about your pastries than others? Or is it that you're using only organic ingredients, or that you use the finest ingredients? And so you're a luxury bakery. And so you start to really think about, here's an opportunity to create distinction and differentiation in the market. But keep going. Why did you decide that of all the bakeries in Denmark, none of them were satisfactory, and you had to create your own? What was so fundamentally different about that? Don't tell me that it's location. Don't tell me that, you have great imported coffee. Come up with a bigger, like a cohesive meaning behind why you decided your bakery had to exist in the world. It's a difficult question to answer, actually, if you really think about it, because you can get swayed by so many other smaller answers, but keep going for the big one, right? And so that's a fundamental question. And then alongside that is, why are we different? And that's also a very important question to think through. And then, who comes to us? Who appreciates what we bring to the table? If it, like this high-end luxury bakery that I'm talking about in Denmark is not going to compete for the same customers as a Dunkin' Donuts, right? The customer at the Dunkin' Donuts wants expediency and convenience. And those are great attributes that Dunkin' Donuts has done a phenomenal job of owning. But so our Denmark bakery is going to have a very different experience. What is that experience going to be? Fill in those blanks. How are you going to treat your customers? And what are your customers going to value? Are they going to appreciate an opportunity to sit and relax and have an ambience that feels uplifting and calming and is different from a Starbucks, different from a Dunkin'? Is that what you're bringing? Define that really and start to lean into the value that you bring, because your customers, they're going to flock to you when it's the right target. So like attracts like. So if you're putting out, this is what my brand stands for, and I'm exuding this in every single possible way, the people who are attracted to that are going to come running to your brand as well. So with the Volvo example, right? When Volvo said, we stand for reliability and safety, someone who is in the market for a roadster or a sports car, or a muscle car or an F-150 pickup truck is never going to look at Volvo. And Volvo is completely happy with that. They're like, we don't want you. You're not our customer. But they are going to talk to parents, and they're going to talk to grandparents, and they're going to talk to people who really want a safe and reliable car. And they know that. And so again, I'm thinking of Volvo today, but this is why when you go to a Volvo showroom, they actually have PlayStations for kids built in, so that because they know who's coming into their dealerships. It's parents with little kids. So there's a place for the kids to play while mom and dad go look at cars. Really smart. And that's how you bring your brand
an experience, right?
It's bringing that holistic brand experience. So again, to the coffee shop in Denmark, if your brand stands for, luxury, right? And so it's that you're using the finest ingredients in your food, and you've got, what does your ambience look like? What does your bakery look like? How are you welcoming customers in? What kind of music are you playing? It starts to really permeate all of your branding decisions. What kind of tables do you have? To be able to then make that value proposition to your customers, and your customers say, you know what? I'm going to go to this bakery. I know I'm going to wind up probably spending, €20 on this outing, but that's okay, because I'm going someplace special. It
is worth it. Then it's okay to pay more.
Yeah.
I think the experience is key. When I work with my brother in our barber shop, the experience is key. It's how the person feels when they are sitting in that chair.
Absolutely.
This is the most important thing.
And it's consistency too, right? So if you have a luxury bakery, and you're talking about high-end ingredients, and but you have cheap paper napkins that are one ply and people can see through, really, you know what I mean? It's these tiny little details, and so you want to think through: do we have tablecloths? Do we not? That adds to the cost, of course, but then that allows you to charge more and have a higher premium. What does your bathroom look like? And how often is that refreshed by your staff so that it's always clean and it's an ambient environment that people feel like, okay, this is a really nice place to come, and it's these little type of questions that you want to think through every single way and help build your brand into something that feels intentional, not accidental.
Yeah. So we should start by defining the real purpose of the whole company. Before we start the company, we have to build the company actually before we are building it by writing down and defining it.
Yeah.
Before we even start.
And like I said, it's not it gets to be much thornier of a problem when you're an established company and you've been in business for 15 or 20 years, and you've got, this type of customer, and then you've got this type of customer, and you don't know how to talk to both of your customers in the same way, and your brand messaging is all up, then it starts to get really complex. If you're starting out and you're a small business, particularly you have the luxury of being able to say, who do we want to be? We've observed the landscape. There's clearly a bakery that offers this is missing. We're going to do it. Here's how we're going to be different, whatever that is, right?
Solve a problem, right?
Exactly. How are you solving a customer pain point? That's a great thing to think about as well. I always say there's, if you're not solving a customer pain point, I'm not really sure you have a business model. So, and I sometimes have that conversation with my clients, and I send them back to design their business plan. Because they sometimes are so excited and they're like, oh, we have this vision. And I'm like, great. Okay. And so, what problem are you solving? And they're like, we don't know. And I'm like, great.
My own problem.
We have to work on that. That is a problem. So that's, those are some ideas that I have. I welcome viewers and listeners to head up to my website, which is magnetic-current.com. and I have a blog, and it talks a lot about, I write a lot of articles for small businesses who are intent on, on learning more about how to be a better brand steward, or in some cases, DIY branding, right? And doing it yourself, and what do you need to think about when you start to brand yourself.
And I actually wanted to present that at the end of this conversation, that you should visit her website to find those three PDF files that you can, as a listener, go through and define your company, define your business, define your why. It's really, really great value you add up front, and this is what I like. You put a lot of value out there, and I think it's great. Can you tell me about why you are so fascinated by the psychology of branding and how the product affects the customer?
Oh yeah. So I'm warning you, we could talk for like 6 hours. This is my absolute favorite topic. So there's a number of frameworks that I take brands through. And as you're developing your brand, one thing you want to think about is how does my brand show up in the world from an emotional standpoint? And so when I ask that question, usually my clients kind of give me a blank stare, like, what do you mean? And I say, what's your brand's personality? And I sometimes get blank stares. And so then I say, okay, look, let's take a look at like Nike, for example. Somehow you put on a pair of shoes or a pair of shorts and a shirt, and suddenly you feel a little bit different. You feel like a little bit more confident, a little more aggressive, a little bit more of an athlete, a little bit more, yeah, I can do this. And these are emotions. And these are emotions that come up that have nothing to do with the product. If you think about it, it's just a shirt or a pair of shorts or a pair of shoes. How are these shoes infusing you with this sudden vigor and energy and feeling of like, right? And so that comes back to brand psychology and archetypal analysis, which is a big part of branding today. Brands have been doing this so let me explain what archetypal analysis is. This was a framework that was codified by Carl Jung back at the turn of the century. Carl Jung was a student of Freud's. And he posited that there are 12 main archetypes that appear throughout time, history, literature, art, archetypes being motifs, if you will, these recurring figures that we see throughout our culture that in essence are reflections of our humanity. There is the hero, the warrior who goes into battle and triumphs victoriously. There is the innocent, the soft-spoken, naive child that we see time and again. There is the sage, the genius, the wonder of the mind and the desire to just express all this intelligence. These are the archetypes, the 12 archetypes that we see time and time again throughout literature, movies, and in all manner of culture today. Around 1960, the advertising industry started recognizing that if you took these archetypes and you married them with brands, that people suddenly had a very strong connection with those brands, because those archetypes, as I said before, really reflect our humanity. And so we see ourselves in those moments, right? If we see the hero in a movie, our heart starts to race, and we get this little jolt of adrenaline, and we're like, well, I would do that. And then the character does that, and you're wrapped up into it because that's exactly what you would do. If we see a different archetype, maybe the rebel in a movie, where someone is supposed to do something, and then all of a sudden they do the exact opposite, and you're floored and you're stunned, but you also then remember, maybe you think back to that moment when you did something at school that you weren't supposed to, and it was a defiant move, and you kind of laugh a little bit, and you feel a little bit more like, yeah, edgy. Those are the archetypes at play. And so, as I said, a couple decades ago, the advertising community cottoned onto the fact that if they married their brands with archetypes, they could create this strong connection within consumers, this emotional connection that would in turn place their brands on a higher level and connect more deeply with the customer than brands that weren't doing this. So one of the all-time classics is Coca-Cola, for example. And the Coca-Cola brand is the innocent. And you don't know that until you look back at their communication. Their communication is, oftentimes it's primary colors, bubbles, laughter, children playing outside, sunshine, blue skies. Their latest ad campaign, which ran for about 15 years, was called Unbottle Happiness. And in 1971, they came up with a cute little catchy tune that went something to the effect of, "I'd like to buy the world a home and furnish it with love, apple trees and honeybees and snow white turtle doves." It's the innocent. It's this, in this world of chaos. And in 1971, it was Vietnam, and just civil rights were exploding in the United States, and the world was just so unfriendly. But hey, you know what? Just take things easy, take a break, relax, think back to a world that things are just simpler and more calm. Have a Coke, unbottle happiness, relax. That is the power of the archetypes. So incredibly powerful. I work with archetypes with every brand I do. The question is really for the brand itself, how strong do you want to lean into your archetype? And what's the right balance? So for example, Harley Davidson is the rebel. So it always admonishes you to go out and just explore freedom, break away, be that rebellious nature, right? That's Harley. They lean extremely heavily on their messaging and on their archetype in their messaging. And so it's pronounced in almost every single ad you see, whether it's a video or a film or a print ad. There's always the rebel coming through. There's a famous one, a print ad that comes to mind, and it says, "Hey, you in the minivan, how long you in for?" As if driving a minivan is a jail sentence. It's this edginess that Harley brings to life. So that's one example. Another one is not a rebel, but on one end of the spectrum. On the other end of the spectrum is a more softer touch with the archetypes. So for example, Microsoft is the ruler. And it's clear when you look at their logo, it's four blocks that are stacked. This is about us being the dominant player in the market. They're very subtle with their communications in comparison to Harley. So you just want to think about how you want that to come to life, and it can be that your archetype could be a further note of distinction and differentiation for your brand in the market. So it's just something to think about as you build your brand with intention. If you say our brand stands for luxury, well, what does that look like, and what kind of voice or character would we want that luxury to be? Would it be an innocent luxury? Would it be a seductive luxury, like the lover is another archetype? Would it be an innovative type of luxury, which is actually what Apple inspires a lot of, right? So just thinking through, adding more context, creating more shape, more definition for your intention for your business.
I was listening to
that wasn't 8 hours. That was a short little synopsis, but but you can see why it's just so much fun, because it's there are different aspects of how I build brands. A lot of times it involves analysis and looking through what the markets are doing and what trends are happening. Those are all very, very informative and very intriguing. But there's something that gravitates and pulls me towards the archetypes, because it's the really fun part where you embody personality and attitude and persona to your brand, and it can make it so much more powerful.
Yeah, actually, I was listening to an interview with Jordan Peterson, and he talks a lot about archetypes and Jung, and he was talking about that most of the newer movies, the movies that like Frozen, he said after, let's see, 20 years, they are forgotten. But if you take those stories like Pinocchio and all the others like that, the Lion King and all that, they have a deeper meaning, and they will be remembered forever.
Although I would say that Frozen is very much an archetype. It is the young innocent who must grow up very quickly. And we see that in, David and Goliath. You see it in Joseph and the Coat of Many Colors. You see it in Finding Nemo. You see it in Frozen, where suddenly the parents are gone and you're left all alone to make these powerful decisions. And that, subconsciously or unconsciously, that triggers that moment when you were 7 years old and you had an altercation at school and you had to get yourself out of that situation. Your parents weren't around or a teacher wasn't around. How did you handle it? And that's what connects you with that movie. So I would argue that the archetypes were actually in play with Frozen. It's so pervasive also today in Hollywood. I mean, you look at, the Marvel series, and they're all the hero archetypes, and you can go through Hollywood movies literally and just sit back. Once you know the dominant archetypes, you can just flag the archetypes immediately, and you see them everywhere. Because again, they are reflections of our humanity, and Hollywood is smart. They want to make movies that relate and resonate with us. And so, this psychology aspect definitely connects people to those stars and those figures on screen, that then make that story more relatable to us and make us connect more with what's happening, right?
Yeah, because we see a dog talking, a car talking. We see personalities embedded in those figures, and we just let it slide through. We don't think that this car shouldn't speak, or we just let it slide through because there's a persona in it. There's a personality in that.
Right.
Yeah. It's really fascinating. I like it.
Oh, trust me. This is like, I can talk about this for decades.
Okay, let's ask that question. What could you spend all day talking about?
I could spend all day talking about branding. I really could. I love branding. I love absolutely everything about it. I love being able to transform companies. So I am the magician. My company, Magnetic Current, we are the magician, and we are in the process of helping transform companies from sort of, I don't really know what I stand for, to I have a vision, I have a clear road forward, I know exactly what I'm doing, and here's how my brand is coming to life in all these various touch points. And so for me, it is such a joy to help clients through that journey and that transformation of, please don't look at my business card. Please don't go to my website too. Oh my God, I'm so proud. I'm so proud. And I'm growing with intention. And I know exactly the target customer that I want to attract, and the ideal customer who deeply and disproportionately values what I alone bring to the table. I also help clients figure that out. A lot of times clients will come to me and they'll say, I don't think I have anything distinctive. I mean, I'm just kind of and I'm like, with one exception, literally in my whole career, one exception, I've sent one brand back and said, go back to the drawing board. And it was a startup company, and they were just forming, and they were like, we think our differentiation is this. And I was like, but generally speaking, I unearth, is your process different, or your methodology, or the way your customer service, or how you lean into, how you do your work. I invariably find those elements and help my clients understand their point of differentiation. It's so powerful when you see the lights go on and they're like, oh my God, that's so cool. So, yeah. So it's a wonderful feeling. So I love.
And you have been doing this for over 2 decades, right?
I've been doing this for 2 decades. Yeah. I took a small detour with the State Department, but sort of, but to be a diplomat for a number of years, which was really fun. And then I came back and founded Magnetic Current.
Why did you start it?
Why did I start Magnetic Current?
Yes.
So the long answer is I was in branding and advertising and was loving what I was doing, but there's also a commercial side to it. So, I would work on these gigantic brands, and it would be so wonderful and powerful to bring a brand to fruition, rebrand or reposition a brand in the market. And then the client would come to me and say, this has been wonderful, thank you so much, but now we need a sales campaign because we need to make our next quarter earnings. And so it'd be like, okay. And so then it was kind of operating and treading water to get a sales campaign going for three for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks to make quarterly numbers. And then they would resurface and say, okay, but now we need another one for the next quarter. And then we need another one for next quarter. And then we need another one. And I was like, oh my gosh, it felt like after a while, it felt like it was just a treadmill for me. And it was, constant consumerism. And I became a little jaded. I was like, really? One of my accounts was Old Navy. And I was like, do people really need more jeans? Like, really? I mean, like after you have like 15, 20 pairs, like maybe enough, And I was like anathema, you just don't say that. And so I became a little jaded with advertising. And I said, I want to use my powers for good. So I joined the State Department as a diplomat and had a wonderful run at the State Department. And it was much more purposeful. It was really purposeful branding and communications that I did with state. And it took me all over the world, and it was great. It was not so great for my family. So I made that decision after a number of years to leave state. But then I came, I sat back and I said, okay, so what do I want to do? Growing with intention. And for me, it was really, I want to help companies that are purpose-minded grow, because I can help companies grow. I know how to do that. I know how to brand companies such that they can grow. But for me, it was really, can I help those who want to change the world and make it a better place, right? Not just be on the earnings cycle, but, really make a difference in the world. And so for me, that's a huge draw for me with my time. If I sit back and I say, I want to help this business grow because they're doing X, Y, and Z. That fills me with delight. So that's why I started Magnetic Current. And it's been a wonderful, process. I am first and foremost a brand strategist. I'm learning how to be a business leader and all the hats that you have to wear as a business leader. So that's also challenging, but I'm loving it. It's great.
There's surely intent and purpose behind your company, and that is lovely, really lovely.
Thank you.
It is, yeah. From your point of view, what determines a person's success?
Wow. That's a loaded question. I think a lot of character traits. How do I start the list? I don't know that they're in any order. So I would say, first and foremost, I think it's integrity. I think it's showing up and being truly, showing up and being the best version of you that you can be, and doing so and doing what's right in that moment. So I think that's really important. I think leading with excellence and always trying to put out the best product possible, because it's the right thing to do, not because, I see a lot of times companies might cut costs in certain areas and not put out an exceptional product. And I think, if you're a company, you're in the business of putting out a product. And so it may as well be an exceptional product, right? I think that's also really important. I think having a sense and a purpose of what you're aiming for, I think is so important as well. Not only in your brand, but also as an individual, really understanding, this is what I stand for. This is what I want to manifest in the world. This is my vision for it. And this is how I'm going to build that path forward. That all comes to be when you have that vision, that North Star. So I think that's also important. I think positivity is underrated. I think a lot of people sometimes, particularly given the situation today, can walk around and say, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, the world is, it's come undone. But I think we're all inspired by positivity. We all want to be, it's not Pollyanna, but it's really looking and saying, where are my skills, and believing in them and saying, here's how I can make things better. So I think that's also really important. There are probably others, but those are the ones that come to mind.
Can you tell me about your aha experiences in your life?
My aha experiences. I think there's so many. I feel like I'm a broken record on this one, but it's just realizing that power that you have when you suddenly decide you're going to do something, or you're going to, you've got a plan, you've got a path forward, and it happens. It's amazing. I mean, people, there's that old adage, oh, dreams, do they really come true? They do. they really do. If you have one and you're serious and you're focused on it, they come true, And so it's recognizing the power that we all have with intention and thought and the energy around that, and focusing on that as opposed to getting distracted and, and prioritizing. I think that's also really important.
But I think there's a lot of things around us. It's like they are made to distract us. The radio is always on. Your phone pops many things on. If you're working on the desktop, on the computer, so many windows, so many things pops up. It is distracting you all the way.
Yes. So yes, absolutely. So here's what you do. You don't turn on the radio. You say, this is my vision. This is what I want to work on. Let's say you want to write a book, and you say, this is really important to me. I want to write a book. Fantastic. Well, then you turn off the music because that's distracting. You turn off your notifications on your phone because that's distracting. You close browsers because those are distracting. You don't check mail for a number of hours so that, you get rid of the distractions and you build yourself a path to your goal. If you're truly passionate about it and this is your vision, this is what you want, then position yourself appropriately, right? It takes discipline, but the thought is, if this is something that's so important to you, then everything else is not. And so you're going to prioritize that.
Yeah, I believe that too. I also believe that many people are not starting with the idea because they don't know how and where to start. So they just don't start. So maybe figuring out where to start and figuring out what are the pieces that should contribute to this idea.
Yeah. And so I think I think that comes down to curiosity, and sitting back and just being curious about the world. And, what about your world is intriguing? What about your world needs fixing? And going through that process and thinking through that and coming up with ways to maybe I would do things differently, or this, why is this way? And just being curious about the world, I think, is a wonderful start. You cannot have innovation without curiosity. They're bedfellows. And so you need to go out and explore and try different things. And then see how that builds into something that might be a concrete business idea, right?
Yeah. If you were able to give an advice to 20 years old out there, what could that advice be?
At 18 years old, I would say the world is yours. Go travel, go be curious, go explore. For 1 or 2 years, out of the house, try something new, different foods, try everything, sample everything, do it. Go check out Asia, go check out, just scare yourself, really. It's surprising what you will learn and how much more confident you will be as a person when you have those types of experiences. And then start to think, particularly when you're 18 or 19, then start to think, what do I want? What have I seen that moved me? What did I see? What did I experience that was compelling? I can't tell you the number of times, I've traveled somewhere and was with a friend, and a friend was like, we were in Spain and they were like, this is unbelievable. I want to build a restaurant. I want to start a business. I want to build a bistro like what we've had here. Nothing like this exists in where we live, and made that happen. The number of times is just by different exposure and just seeing things that are different. And of course, tweaking it slightly, but bringing a different look to it. It's totally possible. But if you stay in your world, that's all you know. And so and I'm not saying you can't be curious or creative in your own world, but there's so much out there to explore that's so much more vibrant. Go check it out. So that's what I would tell.
Because you traveled, right?
I did travel.
You traveled as a 17-year-old alone.
Yes, I did. I got out there. I'm a lifelong traveler. I'm the constant explorer is my archetype of constantly trying to find different cultures and experience new different cultures, and in the process discovering more about myself. That's my archetype. But yeah, when I was 17, I had this wonderful journey to Egypt by myself. And it was harrowing. It completely threw me off my game in a very great way, but it also opened my eyes to the world, and showed me, the possibilities and the wonder of being in a foreign country and leaning, sometimes people in a foreign country, there's one of two ways they can go. They can either clam up with fear and just be really frightened by the surroundings because they're unfamiliar with everything, or they can lean into it and just enjoy it and experience different things and see things with new eyes for the first time. And that is just such a vibrant, rich experience. At least it was for me. And it continues to be with every country that I explore. It was one of the key reasons I decided to join the State Department as a diplomat, because I was like, I want to go places. And the State Department was like, we will send you to Sri Lanka. And I was like, amazing. So that was very cool. But yeah, travel is big on my list.
Yes, because you speak German, Italian, Spanish, English, right? A few words from Sri Lanka also.
Yes, I speak a few words of Tamil, which is one of the languages that's spoken in Sri Lanka because I spent some time there. But yes, I speak a handful of languages, and it's always a joy. It's one of the blessings of being an American. And a lot of people I'll be in a foreign country and they'll say, "Oh, you're American," and I'm like, "Yeah," and then they switch right into German, assuming that I can't understand, and I'm like, So that's always very fun.
What are something useful what is the most useful thing you own?
Most useful thing I own?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of something that would not be an electronic device, because I feel like that's such a given. I mean, would we ever function today without our computers? I don't know if it's not a thing. It would be a person, and it would be my husband. And useful's maybe not the right, but it just, what a wonderful, incredible resource for me. Always keeps me even keeled. One of the things that that is a strength and also a weakness for me is my passion for branding. And so sometimes I will build a brand and I will get so into it and so immersed, and I'm like, oh, I got it, and he's just like, he'll pull me back and be like, okay, but are you actually is this helping the business grow? And I'm like, oh yeah, right. Okay. So then I get refocused. It's great. It's great having somebody who's more even keeled around to help me focus on other priorities in life and not get steamrolled in one direction.
So you are high on openness, right?
I'm sorry?
Are you high on openness?
Am I high on what?
On openness, creativity.
On open. Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah, fundamentally, yeah. It's a huge. Yeah.
So you could jump from idea to an idea, to another and to another, right?
Creativity is very interesting. There's actually a process for creativity, and I think the more you develop the muscles for creativity, it's like a sport. The easier it comes, but there's definitely a process to creativity and how to come up with really creative ideas. So,
yeah. Who makes you smile, or what makes you smile?
Oh, my family, by far. They're I have two small children and a dog and my husband, and they are the light of my life, and I think it's really important to keep perspective. I know that we're all very focused on the business front and wanting to build, the best business we can. And that's important. It absolutely is. But, it's not what you think about on your deathbed, and it's so important to have those key relationships and those anchor points in your life that really, truly matter.
Yeah, because we are so focused on our career and on success.
Yeah. And I think there's a time for that in your life, and particularly if you're young and you've got, energy and you're ready to go, you absolutely want to focus on that. Absolutely. It's so important. But just recognizing as, as you step back and, the older you get, the time becomes more precious, and just recognizing that, that what truly matters,
Okay, so what is success for you, if you have to define that?
What is success for me is having made a difference for people. Having, in my business, it's having helped someone see their brand in a different way, having positioned them differently to the point where they're so happy with where they wound up, and they feel this sense of confidence in their business today that they didn't have before. That's success professionally for me. It's the same also for my family. It's that, I want to have made a fundamental difference in my husband's life, but also in my children's lives.
Yeah. If I were a genie, what would you ask for?
Oh. COVID.
No limitations.
No, I'm an introvert and I really enjoy my time alone, but man, there's nothing like taking something away from us for us to really appreciate what we had. And so I think that's the blessing of COVID, but I do miss my interactions with friends and colleagues and clients, and just being able to have a meeting, being able to sit in that chair, would be so nice. And it's this works, and yet we know it's not the same. We humans are wired. We're wired for connection. We totally are. And when we don't have it, we're on edge. We're somehow not full, not fully complete. So I miss that. So that would be my genie wish.
That's a great wish. Where are you heading from here? What are the plans for the future?
Gonna keep continuing to move forward with my business. I would love to, love to continue doing what I do for clients. It's, like I said, it's a passion for me, and it's something that I love doing. I've developed such a point of view about branding that for me, it's so much fun at this point. So I would love to continue to do that. We'll see how that pans out this year, with COVID. And, one of the wonderful things that I see a lot of businesses doing actually in the time of COVID is they're pulling back and saying, well, we can't operate as normal. So maybe this is a really good time for us to think through how we should operate. And, what do we want to be, and how do we want to appear in the world when COVID lifts? And I think that's a really important question for brands and companies to be asking themselves right now. And I'm seeing that. So that's great.
Yeah, because right now it's a game changer. It is. Many companies are going down. And if you are not innovating, changing, developing, probably not going to be here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For what in your life do you feel the most gratitude or grateful for?
The most gratitude. Well, first of all, I'm so blessed that I have the family around me to support me the way they do. I'm also grateful for, I know we all, as human beings, we all have our moments of imposter syndrome and questioning whether we're truly all that special. I'm so grateful for the skills that I have that I've developed over time. That I can sit back and say, this is actually what I do and I'm good at it. And that's been a powerful lesson. It's taken a very long time to learn. I think everybody learns it at their own pace. And I think we all face it though, of questioning our abilities. And so I would say I'm grateful for what I've done in the past and my track record, and been the opportunities I've been given to lean into that. So I think those are the two things I'm super grateful for.
Yeah. You told me about your doubt in yourself, and what did you do with that? Because many of us have the same doubt, I think.
Yeah, I think you really allow it sometimes. You can allow it to really steer you And it's really interesting. We all have somewhere around 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day.
Wow.
But for some reason, the negative ones are the ones that we focus in on. We don't focus in on the good ones. The oh my gosh, you did a great job, or wow, you really impressed that client, or you had an interesting podcast, or whatever. You focus on the negative ones, and the negative ones, when you focus on them, then they resonate more, and then they tend to stay longer in your mind, and you fixate on them, and then you really start. Then it has this powerful feeling of changing your mood and your outlook and your ability and your approach and your thinking about yourself and your contributions. I mean, it is a snowball effect. And so it's taken a long time, and I've worked with some coaches to help me realize that it's just a thought, just like it's one of those 60,000 thoughts that you have every day. And you can choose to fixate on it, or you can say, I don't know if that's really true. And the counterpunch to any negative thought is sitting back and saying, can I prove that wrong? So when I get a negative thought that says, I don't know how to brand this business, I go, that's an interesting thought. It's a thought. It's not a belief. It's just a thought. And I kind of go, is that true? Have there been other points in my career where I worked on brands and I didn't know how to rebrand them, and then I figured it out? Yes, lots. Okay, so then I look at that thought and I'm like, yeah, that doesn't have much weight. And the more experience I have around that particular doubt or that thought, the less it feels powerful. And now it's just kind of like, oh yeah, I don't agree with that thought. And it just goes away. Just like, an extreme example is like, I cannot watch horror movies. They freak me out, and I will dream about them for weeks. I can't get them out of my head, so I don't watch horror movies. But every once in a while, I will see, even an advert on TV for a horror movie or something like that, and it'll stick in my mind. And there will be scenes of that little advert that comes back in my mind at night, of course. And I just, I just think about it, and I go, I don't want to think about that. And it goes away. And it's that same motion of, that reflex that you have to kind of build like a muscle in your mind of telling yourself, I'm not going to choose the self-doubt talk. I have proof points that are, that of me clearly living into my accomplishments. And so this self-doubt is it's just noise. So, and it helps you move forward.
Yeah. What are some of the habits you use daily that contribute to your success?
I'm a huge believer in great sleep and good exercise and a healthy eating regimen. So, and I have definitely found with COVID and my kids now being home from school, I have found that if I don't work out first thing in the morning, it doesn't happen. So that's like a mandatory thing. So this morning I was doing yoga. And then followed up by just a healthy breakfast and green tea, and just setting myself up for success. I think it's so important, and just being consistent and knowing what you need to show up and be the best version of yourself is so important. So doing that regularly. So those are mine.
Yeah. Great. How can people reach out to you?
People can reach out to me. I am at Juliana at magnetic-current.com. And Juliana is with one N. Or you can go on my website and find me there. It's www.magnetic-current.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. So Juliana Spaven. And I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions about this interview or about branding, please let me know. Amar did mention earlier, there are a couple of handouts that I have on my LinkedIn page, so you can actually just go there and download them. And they are DIY guides for small businesses who really want to see if they can't find their intention themselves. And I strongly encourage small businesses to do so, because it's such a powerful, like I said, growing with intention is such a powerful mechanism for success. So please do it. It's roll up your sleeves, do it yourself kind of work, but It's a great exercise to think through it. It helps you become a better steward of your brand. It just helps you think through what's important, what really matters. What do I want to focus on? What are my values? What's my promise that I deliver to customers every day? Those are really important questions to ask yourself and to have the answers to.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those questions actually could be used in your personal life too, like defining where are you going with your life? Why do you live?
Yeah, absolutely. So intention is, growing with intention and becoming a better human being with intention is so key versus letting life just happen to you. And then, and it's, I think, what we're all kind of hoping doesn't happen to us in our 60s or 70s, but regret, that time has gone and we didn't lead or live the best possible version of our lives. So it's avoiding that.
And I also think that many people think that they have time.
Yes.
They imagine that there's a lot of time up front, but actually, to be a bit harsh, you don't know when you are going to die.
Exactly.
So time could end in a second or two, in a year or two. You don't know.
You don't. So, people always say, make it count, live every day like it was your last. But I would say, build a plan around what do you want to achieve? Because it's extraordinary how it actually manifests in your life. If you truly put the thinking behind it, it shows up.
If you don't do life will do you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Juliana, any last words?
I think I've said a lot.
I have enjoyed it. Thank you. Really.
I have too. Thank you so much for inviting me on your show. I really appreciate it. So I'm humbled for the ask. So thank you so much for reaching out. And yeah.
Thank you for joining me. Thank you.